Hello and welcome to the Bike Lane, wherever you may be watching it from, whether it be sneaking a look in the office or watching it at home, anywhere around the globe. This week, we take a look at the Giro d'Italia, including a catch-up with Matty Lloyd. Why isn't he racing the Giro? And will he be racing the Tour de France? Plus, there's the report into Orica-GreenEDGE, courtesy of Nicki Vance. We have a brief chat to her and look for some solutions. We also talk about the Tour of California. TJ Van Garderen, has he arrived and has he proved himself as a team leader for the Grand Tours in the future? We head back to the hot lap and we see if former AFL great Danny Frawley can get the better of the record holder, Shane Kelly. There's the Target Healthy Living tips where Scott McGrory ducks back down to the Victorian Institute of Sport. Plus, as always, we deal with what's on your mind. Wade Wallace, after your 40th birthday, without your wife, welcome back.
Thanks, it's great to be back in freezing Melbourne.
Scott McGrory, ready to roll?
You betcha.
Let's start with the Giro d'Italia. Let's get into it. The Giro d'Italia, it's coming down to the business end of the race with three big mountain stages to come. Vincenzo Nibali is in the leader's jersey. Cadel Evans is poised, maybe to pounce, if the Italian shows a sign of weakness. Can Cadel Evans win? Who wants to go first?
Wade.
I think he absolutely could win, but that's if everything doesn't go well with Nibali. If he could
So it's
crash,
Nibali's to lose.
It is. And he could crash, he could get sick like Wiggins or Hejjedal. Anything could happen, and someone has to be there to take his place.
So on form, Nibali is the real favourite, isn't he, going through? And we would like to see Cadel win. We don't want to just be cheerleaders of Cadel Evans. Of course we want him to win, but it really is, it's really up to Vincenzo and how what happens to him, really, isn't it?
It is. The other threat is Rigoberto Urán. We've seen a very different Team Sky at this year's Giro by comparison to what we've become accustomed to. And I like this addition because this is a Sky team that is on the attack. Completely different to when they're racing for Wiggins or Froome.
Well, they've had to think on their feet, haven't they? I think they would have tried to strangle the race to death like they did the Tour de France if Wiggo was still there. He had to go home. So, yeah, they've had to think on their feet and come up with another plan, and it's great. They're just throwing everything at all the mountain stages, and Urán's looking very dangerous.
The massive difference is that they don't have a yellow jersey to defend so early in the race like they did at the Tour de France last year. Right from the first time trial, they were riding on the front, defending a jersey, and that was their responsibility. Yeah. Now they're taking the race by the horns.
They have to take the risk. Mauro Sant'Ambrogio will be fighting with Rigoberto Urán for a spot on the podium. He was the winner of stage 14 in dramatic fashion where we saw the last few hundred metres. But his quotes afterwards, Sant'Ambrogio has taken to speaking about himself in the third person. Here are a few of my favourites. He gave us to open up with, "I'm really happy to have found a Morrow who had practically disappeared a few years ago." He then went on to say, and this one takes the cake, "I don't know what the next aims for Morrow will be." Does he need to move on and actually just speak about himself in the first person?
I think he needs to he needs to really look into his inner Morrow and actually think about what he's saying about himself.
He's been good though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the only other result I can remember from him is Lombardia last year. He came in fourth, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. And cuddling Cadel after Cadel lost the yellow jersey in 2010 with a broken elbow.
Well, Cadel will be the one that is missing him. You know, he'd be happy for his former teammate. You know, if they got along, who knows if they did or didn't when he was at BMC. But now he's moved on to another team. I think Cadel perhaps would like to have him back on BMC because he's a rider that could really work with him in the mountain.
Among the big losses for the Giro d'Italia has been the abandonment of both Bradley Wiggins and Ryder Hejjedal. The big winner out of that is July. It's the Tour de France. What happens with those two?
Well, I think Hejjedal is going to be super motivated, you know, after having a disappointing Giro d'Italia as the defending champion going home early and more mountainous tour than it was last year. So I think he'll be a factor, maybe not for a victory, but he's going to make those climbs a lot faster. And for Wiggins, well, hey, this is going to be fantastic.
Back in a Froome-Wiggins discussion.
Yeah.
Who would you pick as the leader?
Definitely Froome for this course. It doesn't have nearly the same type of, doesn't lend itself to the same strength as we did for Wiggins last year. So Froome, but again, it just creates this other backstory to the tour that we all like to follow.
Soap opera.
What about the management? What about the management? Dave Brailsford, you know, what happens now though? Because they have said they would go for Froome. Wiggins said that he would. This is a completely different mix now, and there's been so much money invested in Bradley Wiggins over the last 15 years by the British program.
Couldn't write the script. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Yeah. We've had a few questions from a number of you on Matty Lloyd. Where is he? Why isn't he at the Giro? And will he ride the Tour de France? We caught up with him earlier on. He was a little sick earlier in the season, so the team decided not to send him to the Giro because it might destroy the rest of his season. As for will he or won't he ride the Tour de France, here's Matty Lloyd himself.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, we do have a team that that's quite broad in its aspects, and given the fact that Pataki had obviously retired, either somewhat partially, a couple of weeks ago, meant that there was a bit of an opening more so for a bit more diversity. And when you think about races like the Tour de France, apart from the Scarponis of the world, our team doesn't have anyone else to sort of run general classification show, nonetheless getting breakaways on mountain stages, which is sort of down my alley. So, from a training perspective and, from a general sort of outlook on the season, for someone like me, you just have to take into consideration that the other two big races with potentials are obviously the Tour de France and the Vuelta a España. So, we'll have to look down the track.
So Matt Lloyd in with a chance to ride the Tour de France. Let's hope that he can, because it could be the tipping point of his career.
Yeah, it's getting to that point for him, really, isn't it? He's a King of the Mountains winner classification for the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago. Not at the Giro this time, but I think if he was there anyway, he would have to ride in support of Scarponi.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing Matt Lloyd sitting on the front, kilometre after kilometre. Lamprey aren't doing that at the moment, but that's what they would have expected him to do.
That's not his thing.
It's not, so I think the Tour is going to be a big benefit for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Blessing in disguise that possibly that Matty didn't ride this Giro. He could be in the Giro.
If he can deliver.
Yeah.
We, in the past, spoke about Tweet of the Week. It's fallen by the wayside a little bit, but Chris Boardman caught our attention on stage 14 of the Giro d'Italia, which was the one where we had virtually no broadcast at all. And he tweeted, "That was the best stage of the Giro I've never seen." I liked it. It was a stage where we saw the last 450 metres.
And that it was quite an epic stage for the riders themselves, but for you guys actually working it in front of thousands and thousands of people, how did you guys adapt? Because you didn't have any coverage.
Millions of people, mate.
Millions.
Well, it was one of those moments where that little voice of doubt in the back of my head, which all of us suffer from every now and then, is saying, "Don't you stuff this up now." Because if you call in for 50 kilometres, of course you make mistakes, but you've got a chance to recover. With 500 metres to go, them coming out of the mist, you felt the pressure and you had to get it right.
But you guys had absolutely nothing to go on. You had the same stuff that us at home, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you guys get to work with?
Well, the only thing on that particular stage is, I guess, thank God for Twitter, because there was a little bit of Twitter feed coming through, and we could get some time gaps from the team cars that were tweeting about their own riders.
Yeah.
And we weren't getting any information from the race organisation, so that's what we were going by. Basically, just tweeting off, commentating off Twitter.
But if you want to get a flavour for what it's like to commentate, just sit in your lounge room, hit the mute button, call to the pitches, because we're seeing all the same things that you are at home. So the champion system weekend warrior, we liked it from Abdu, who pointed out the spectator that fell off the edge of the road. That caught everyone's attention, except Sean Kelly.
Sean Kelly commentating, didn't miss a beat, just kept commentating straight over the top of that, didn't make any note of it. And look, I thought it was hilarious, when I saw it live, but it's so much better on repeat.
It's going to be on the highlight reel for a long time. So Abdu, you're the winner of the champion system weekend warrior prize. Keep the suggestions coming. There's only 1 week to go in the Giro d'Italia. Next up, we catch up with Nicki Vance and look at the Orica-GreenEDGE report. Hasn't there been a lot of coverage for doping in cycling over the last 12 months? It continues, and recently with the release of Nicki Vance's report into Orica-GreenEDGE. A couple of notes from Nicki Vance were the fact that she felt there were limitations to the interviews with the riders and the staff because of management's announcement about the fact that they had said they were going to have a zero tolerance policy. But instead of looking at the past, looking to the future, one dot point that caught my attention was her recommendation to appoint a psychologist to the team. Here's what Nicki had to say about that.
What was more about was the support for riders and young riders who may be in foreign, across the way, Australian riders that are working in Europe, and the different support around them, the pressures on them coming from either themselves or from the team, and at times having to make decisions. And I guess that the medical person that gave me that view thought that possibly having this kind of support may lead to being able to identify any warning signs early on. So that was where that came from, and I thought that was interesting, and it certainly added to some of the general view that I had from others, and felt myself that you do need to make sure that riders have support at any time, regardless of where they live, but just particularly when you're a long way from home and in a different environment, and some of them are very young and living away from the sort of regular supports they would have had back here in Australia.
Well, Nicki Vance, looking to the future and looking to solutions for the sport to move forward and get away from the dark history. We acknowledge the past, but let's look for solutions instead of crying about what has happened previously.
Yeah, you know, I think we've always talked about the past and what people have done or might have done or whatever, but none of their answers are going to satisfy our curiosity. And I think it sounds cliche, but it is best to just start moving on with solutions, which
learn from the past and focus on the solutions now.
Yeah.
I agree with that approach.
Well, one of the points there for me is if you're going to bring in a physiologist to look at the signs and work with the young riders to make sure that they're not going to go down that path, then it's a good point that they bring back Matt White into the program.
Because he can identify the signs he saw in himself.
He can certainly see those and actually pick them up in any of the young riders at Orica-GreenEDGE. And if you can see it, then he can cut it off before it starts.
So watch this space for more news from Orica-GreenEDGE on how they adopt the recommendations by Nicki Vance. Next, we head to the Tour of California to review and speak about TJ Van Garderen. The Tour of California has been run and won. TJ Van Garderen delivered on his expectations as the pre-race favourite. He also came out and said that he's demonstrated he is the full package. Is he the full package?
Well, look, I think he might be reading a little bit too much of his own press on that one. Look, he won the race, of course, it's a fantastic race, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. You know, it is only a smaller tour in the grand scale of Grand Tours. And I think in his team, BMC, you've still got to look at Cadel Evans as being the number one.
You said a few weeks ago that TJ was overrated. Sticking with it?
I still think he is overrated. The full package, I don't think the Tour of California is in that package, right? But
I think it's a big step forward, though, this win.
It is, and he's done well at, I think, a 4th and a 5th place in the past couple of years as well, and he's done really well in these week-long races, but 5th place in the Tour de France to 1st place is exponential. That's a huge leap, and I'll give him 5 years and he'll be doing something great, but not quite this year.
It's worth noting Mick Rogers in 2nd place.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael has said himself the last couple of years that he knows he can win those sorts of races, but he'll only be a domestic for others in the Grand Tours. So TJ's still got a little bit of work to go, I think, to be the number one man in his team.
With an Australian bias, there were some good results from the next generation, or maybe almost the current generation. Who caught your attention?
Can't go past Rowan Dennis in the time trial. You know, he's a rider that's come out of the Australian track program, Team Pursuiter.
Got kicked out of it previously as well. He's turned his career around nicely.
Well, he has, and it's a good point, Matt, because there was that mindset issue, a bit of an anger management problem that he was having. He's gotten past that completely. And I spoke to Charlie Wigilius, he's a director sportif at the Garmin Sharp team, and he said they're very happy with the progression that he's been making these last few months. Cameron
Meyer was good as well. Slipped down a little bit on the last stage, or the second last stage with the big mountain climb. Would you select him for the Tour de France?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Cause he's done the other 2 Grand Tours, I believe, and this is just the next step in his whole progression, for sure.
So as much as we're recognising the young Australians, this is a great race to recognise the young Americans who are on the rise. And they took out the best young rider classification with Lawson Craddock, who's only 21 years of age, riding for the Bontrager squad, and he has got a promising future.
Yeah, well, the whole Bontrager squad, I think they got 1, 2, 3 in the young rider classification. So, yeah, good development squad there.
First raced in Europe as a 16-year-old, and he's got a lot of experience already. He is a bright spark for the future, but that team is critical to the development of American cycling. Because whilst in Australia and Great Britain, there's a lot of government funding for the next generation, in America, it's a classic free market. It's the capitalist kingdom. They rely on teams like Bontrager, BMC Development Squad, to develop their next set of stars.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, isn't it, that the people that are behind those teams have been Lance Armstrong and George Hincapie as well.
A couple of colourful characters in racing parlance.
Yeah, but at least they are contributing towards the future of sport in their
country. They
country.
are, which is important. So, Tour of California, congratulations TJ. American viewers, tell us what you think. Should he lead BMC or Cadel Evans at the Tour de France? Scott McGrory this week heads back down to the Victorian Institute of Sport for the Target Healthy Living tips and takes a look at diet.
We're again down here at the Victorian Institute of Sport, and we have sports dietitian Kylie Andrew with us. You're going to take us back to basics with sports nutrition. Let's talk about sugar.
Absolutely. Look, sugar's become, even though it is the basics, it's become an interesting one. Lately, people are referring to sugar as sweet poison, and a lot of people avoiding it in their diet for fear that it's not good for them.
It's getting a really bad reputation, isn't it, sugar?
Yeah, look, it is. And while certainly pure sugar is not nutritious and it's not good for us, it's not shown to cause disease. And for athletes, it does play an important part in their diet.
So how should they monitor that? What are we talking about? What sort of sugar intake should they be taking? And if you are in the middle of really heavy training, when should you be taking it, and I guess in what form?
I think the idea for athletes is that if their energy needs are high, then adding some sugar to some other nutritious foods can be really beneficial. So honey on your porridge can add to the energy value of that. Some sugar in a muesli slice can make a nutritious snack. And certainly during long training sessions, when the body's at risk of depleting energy stores, it is good to add some sugar to their during race or during training session.
Well, energy gels is something that's really come into cycling in the last decade or so. And in races, the riders use lots of energy gels, along with some other heavier foods as well. In training as well, should they be using those energy gels throughout training also?
I think it's important to do so at some point so that the body gets used to using, whether it's a gel or a sports bar or a sports drink, so that the body does get used to consuming that during, but it doesn't have to be their choice every time. So they can balance it out with some sandwiches cut up and some bananas and some other foods also.
So basic common sense a little bit in the end. So if you are riding a lot, you're in heavy training mode, normal, basic, simple sugars, it's fine. Use it as much as you really need to, but if you're not riding as much as you used to and you're just watching the show on the couch all the time, well then, hey, just keep those donuts in the cupboard.
Well, after hearing from Dr. Mitch Anderson a few weeks ago and introducing the chocolate milkshakes into recovery, and now Kylie Andrew with the balanced view on sugar, I'm liking the Target Healthy Living tips.
I might get back out on the bike a bit more. It's chocolate milk and donuts. Well, not donuts, but still balance with the sugar. But yeah, it's something that's been forgotten about. Everybody's trying to just eliminate sugar from the diet. If you're exercising a lot, you've got to bring it back in.
Yeah.
Balanced diet's the key.
Yeah, and sugar is the lifeblood of our sport, right? It gives us energy. And yeah, I don't know how you can cut that out. I mean, you can probably decide what types of sugars you want to go for, but it's a great source of our energy. We need that.
One man who needed his energy when he did the hot lap was Danny Frawley. We go out and see whether he can challenge the time of Shane Kelly. Last week out on our hot lap, it was the four-time world champion Shane Kelly who has set the benchmark for everybody else to follow with a time of 1 minute 20.2 seconds. This week, it's one of the greats of Australian rules football, Danny Frawley, who goes to take on the course. It's out at the Kew Boulevard, which on Google Maps says Yarra Boulevard, but everybody in Melbourne knows it as Kew Boulevard. It's a little under a kilometre around. Danny Frawley is a star of his sport. He's now out of his comfort zone. Let's see how he goes. So Danny Frawley, you've played in front of 80,000 plus people at the MCG. You've played on Ablett, Dunstall. You've coached Richmond. How does the pressure compare here?
Well, it's man on man. You know, I mean, you're in the bike line, you're playing on Dunstan, you're playing on Ablett, it's me against him. Now it's me against the bike. Now at 107 kilos, on a bit of metal, hopefully it holds me up for a start. And I've had a look at the 1K circuit here. The downhill's going to suit me beautifully. But then the last turn, we get a hairpin, then it's uphill.
Maybe we should get a time split. Get you down the back straight, all the downhill part.
I would like the time split. I'm tipping down at bottom corner, it's still going to be stationary, and then I've got to get going here. I think it's a good 350 metres to the line. It's going to take all I've got, which is not much to give, but anyway, I'll give it my best.
Still got hair on your legs.
Yeah, well, I shaved them, Scotty, about 3 years ago. I've got 3 daughters. They thought I was jumping the fence. And they said, Dad, not a good look. Act your age, and I know the cyclists are still putting pressure on me, but the 3 daughters at home is far more pressure than cyclists saying I've got the hairy leg.
All right, let's get you ready to
roll. Do we get a rolling start?
No rolling start. And you've got the challenge of clipping in.
Is there a prize for, like the Melbourne Cup sweep, the last horse?
You get your money back.
Get a booby prize?
You get a red light.
It's got to be red. I'll give me a bit shot. Let's go.
All right, let's go. On your hop. So it's like the ball has been held up in the centre. We've got the 5-second countdown.
The trouble is I can normally elbow someone under the chin by this before the bounce. Just have a look around, see if the umpire's around. Just whack. Just take the guts, the wind out of Dunstall.
We'll have video replay for that as well, though. You ready?
Just get over here, Scotty, so I can just feel at home.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he's away. Danny Frawley.
Oh, Jesus.
And he's slow on the start. Ablett is coming.
I'll tell you the thing about Danny Frawley though, and this is the few things I've done with him. We had an event where he and Jason Dunstall on the velodrome competing against each other. I've done a couple of charity rides with him as well. He is competitive. Like no man I've ever met.
And he races a bit down at Sandown.
Oh,
he's
he
had a
does?
few falls. He's bounced back up. He's a pretty tough boy.
Yeah. Well, Dunstall pulled me aside when we did the day at the velodrome. He said, now, look, got to have a talk to you about this. Make sure you keep an eye on Danny because he will try and kill me out there. He'll put me into the fence, he'll
As
put
he
me
did
off
on
the
the
track.
field.
He does, exactly. So very competitive.
He's 118. He's
Here he comes,
coming.
here he comes.
He's got 10 seconds to get here
He's at
to
full
get the
speed.
better of Tiffany Cherry. And it's going to be desperately close. He's running out of time.
Come on, Danny. Go, Danny!
He might be popped.
That's it!
He has stopped the clock with a time that is very close to Tiffany.
right.
How did that feel?
You allowed to swear?
You're allowed to swear.
Shit ass.
Okay, so
One of them. The start wasn't great. The downhill was terrible. The uphill was shit ass. Nearly took 3 pedestrians on the hairpin.
Tiffany Cherry did 1:31.2.
I reckon the starts cost me.
All right, you have done 1:30. What do you reckon the next digit? It's 1:32.4.
Oh, you're kidding me. I thought you said 130 point something.
No, you've been beaten by Tiffany Cherry.
Oh, well.
Should
So-
we get Jason Dunstall out here and see if he can better your time?
Have you got a crane? Look, all good fun. I look forward to your next challenge, whenever that is, and hopefully it's not a standing start there because I'm really disappointed at the start. And it was all uphill after that.
We're glad you could join us on the bike lane. Next time, shave your legs, it might go a little faster.
Brilliant,
Thanks,
matey.
mate. Thanks, Danny.
And Scotty.
Danny Frawley put his reputation on the line. He was significantly beaten by Shane Kelly, and at 1 minute and 32.4 seconds, Tiffany Cherry got the better of him as well. How do you think Danny's coping with that? Or is it just that Tiffany was so good?
Oh, look, Tiffany's ride was good, but Danny be devastated. He should be embarrassed as well. Terrible performance by Danny.
You tell him because he's a big man. Tiffany's was a good ride though. And good on Danny for sticking it on the line.
Oh yeah, he left everything on the road, and Tiffany's was a good time to beat
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Well, we've got 1 week to go on the hot lap. I want to see you two go head to head. And can either of you beat Shane Kelly?
Oh, you will. You've been doing ergo sessions like it's the Olympics again.
You used to play ice hockey. Oh, that means nothing.
That's pretty.
So, what's wrong with ergo?
The conditions have been cold. So next week, in the final edition of the hot lap for this season at least, Olympic Games gold medalist versus former hockey player from Canada.
Nothing.
Wallace versus McGrory. Get set. The favourite segment for the show, What's on Your Mind, where you set the agenda. And this week, Peter has sent in the question about Jens Voigt. Wade, given you just celebrated your 40th birthday, it's over to you.
Could you imagine being 41 years old, still riding as a professional cyclist? But Scott, you would have known him back in the AS days over 20 years ago.
What? Because I'm old, I would know, would I?
You're in that age bracket.
No, look, I know Jens from a long way back for sure. His first time as a professional cyclist was with the Australian Institute of Sport combination professional team. They had with some Europeans there. And, look, he's such an Aussie character. He's German, but he's larger than life. He knows all the Aussie accents and the Aussie jokes. He's
the
fantastic
United
guy.
Nations in one because everybody's adopted him as their own.
Yeah.
And shut up legs. I'm sure a lot of you have got a shut up legs t-shirt. Have you ridden on his coattails or have you helped blow up the reputation, enhance the reputation of Jens?
No, I couldn't do anything to Jens's reputation.
You've sat on his reputational wheel.
I've been on Jens's wheel for a couple of years now with those t-shirts.
So how much longer has he got left? He's 41, 42 in September, oldest guy in the peloton, but no signs of a drop in motivation.
Well, he's still winning races, so his physiology is still good enough, obviously, to get to the line first.
Yeah.
So
He's better than a lot of 28-year-olds in their prime.
Absolutely. Why would you employ a young rider that might take a couple of years to develop when you've got someone with the experience of Jens? He's still good enough to win races, and what a good guy to have around.
And he's got 6 kids to feed.
He has to keep riding there.
Yeah, he has to keep riding. So, Peter, we can't really answer your question. We don't know how much longer he's got, but I can assure you it will be a sad day when he retires. It's getting closer, unfortunately. Before we close, we'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Ride Cycling Review, celebrating their 15th year and their 60th edition of the magazine. They've covered some big stories, like the Festina affair, Cadell winning the Tour, Stuart O'Grady at Paris-Roubaix. Cadell's been a regular feature on the cover as well, but so has Brett Aiken. Brett Aiken's made the front cover.
He absolutely has, and I think with all those big names you just mentioned, I think clearly the best cover they ever had was back in 2000. I think we must have a photo of it somewhere. It was Brett Aiken on the cover with some other bloke.
You're not showing any hints of bias at all.
You know, if you win that hot lap, you're going to be asking Rob for another cover.
You might get another cover. You could. So that's it for this episode of The Bike Lane. It's the second last for this season. So keep the feedback coming. We want to hear what's on your mind, the Champion System Weekend Warrior, anything else you want to talk about. Plus, don't be afraid to head out to the hot lap and set a time and post it on our website. Well, we've got a week to go on the Giro. Next week we'll be discussing the winner, and I hope you can join us then.